Hey.
There you are.
So good afternoon. I want to thank everybody for being here today, and I appreciate the time with the Situate folks talking about the obvious implications of this storm in their community here. It's worth starting by saying this storm isn't over yet, especially here on the South Shore, the Cape and the Islands, and the South Coast, as well as up in the Cape Ann area. We're still dealing with significant winds, tree damage, and power outages. The State Emergency Operations Center in Framingham and MEMA's East Regional Emergency Operations Center were activated first thing this morning. We're coordinating closely with our local partners. There's been a lot of back and forth between MEMA and their team and between the Lieutenant Governor and me and many of our colleagues in local government to help them with whatever they may need. The Lieutenant Governor, as I said, has been on the phone pretty much all day with local leaders. Police, fire, EMTs, DPW, and highway crews and the utilities have been working since first thing this morning and all day to respond and clean up as safely as they possibly can, given some of the issues associated with the wind. We can't thank everybody enough for their hard work on this, but there's significant work left to be done, and the most significant impact we're seeing at this point obviously relates to the power outages. We talked earlier, the chief pointed out to us that if this was next week's tide instead of this week's tide, we'd probably be dealing with very significant flooding and water damage as well. I'm doing the best I can to find the positiveness in all of that. At this point in time, there are about 500,000 customers without power, and this is a pretty concentrated hit. It's mostly in the South Shore and down onto the Cape. Folks should remember the storm isn't finished, and crews are working to make roadways and other infrastructure safe. We certainly saw a ton of that on our way down here, and I'm sure that anybody who lives anywhere between sort of Quincy and the end of the Cape can probably not have to go very far to find really good examples of how rough this storm was on their communities. National Grid and Eversource and the other utilities are already working to restore power where they can, but in some cases they do need to wait until the winds come down before it's really going to be safe to get up into a bucket truck. They'll talk a little bit more detail about their restoration efforts in a minute, but at this time they expect that it will be a multi-day process. And if you have to go out and you're in some of these areas that have been really hard hit, we would ask you to be very safe when you do so. Fallen trees have impacted roadways across the Commonwealth, and especially in Eastern Mass and on the South Shore and down on the Cape, so please drive carefully. There are crews that are out cleaning up debris all over the place. Give them some room. And also, in some areas, coastal roadways have flooded out. Again, drive carefully and don't go through big puddles if you can avoid it. On the transportation front this morning, commuter rail service was impacted at several locations. Red Line service on the Braintree branch and the Mattapan trolley line service had to be replaced with buses while crews worked to remove trees and large branches from those routes. Thankfully, all the MBTA and commuter rail lines are running normally at this time. Crews have been pre-positioned to respond to any issues such as downed trees and localized flooding, so that's helped restore some of the service faster. And we ask commuter rail customers to please be patient because while the trees may be off the tracks in many areas, passengers are still experiencing some delays due to the ongoing issues associated with signals, which are all due, of course, to the outages we're seeing everywhere else. The same goes for all the ferries. Please check the mbta.com schedule for changes and cancellations there. With respect to public safety, residents who are not able to stay in their homes without power should reach out to their local communities, police and fire, their local emergency management operations, mayors, city managers' offices, and seek other options, and if they can, stay with friends or family. Neighbors should be as good as they can be and to check in with one another if they have any concerns about one of theirs. We don't expect any major issues to develop overnight, but MEMA will continue to monitor this situation closely, including keeping an eye on additional threats with respect to the next high tide over the next few hours, which may in fact be significant. Everyone should pay attention to their local public safety officials on this stuff, and we're going to continue to do all we can to help the utilities to get their work done so that they can help make sure that we get people back up and operational as soon as possible. And with that, I will turn over to Lieutenant Governor.
We're here in Situate at the Emergency Operations Center. Local officials who are quite familiar with the impacts that a storm can have in a community. And we find ourselves back here once again. To reiterate what the governor has said, we've had significant impacts in municipalities across the state, particularly here on the South Shore, the Cape, and the islands. Many communities are dealing with extensive tree damage, and that means they've got a lot of trees down and power lines down. As the light turns into darkness, just be very careful. There are still a lot of trees and leaves and covering wires that could be exposed. Throughout the day, we've been coordinating with our partners at the local level, and we stand ready to assist and support them in any and all ways that we can, and we will do. Our team at MEMA, you'll hear from Sam soon, is also working with the Mass Public Works Association on mutual aid requests and sharing DPW resources from unimpacted communities. The association has 300 communities and is working to accommodate any requests for saw and tree crews from several communities. We've already deployed equipment to affected areas. As the governor said, please check on your neighbors and those in need during this time. I think you all know how to do that and are willing to do that. Thank you to the hard work of the crews that have stepped up in cities and towns to clear debris and make roadways safe. They know their work does not end until this mission ends. It's a 24/7 response with a tremendous amount of urgency, coordination, and collaboration to get this done for the people of our Commonwealth. We appreciate your patience as we work through this, and above all, be safe. Watch out for your children and your pets and your neighbors. Keep them away from down power lines. Continue to be informed by monitoring important updates through all the channels here covering this avail, as well as your social media and other ways that you keep yourself informed. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Secretary Theoharides.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Governor, good afternoon. As the governor said, there are nearly 500,000 customers statewide without power at this time. It's largely concentrated on the South Coast, Cape and Islands, and some up on the North Shore. Utility companies have secured additional line and tree crews to assist in repairing damages to the system and restoring customer outages, and our agencies are coordinating with them closely to make sure that continues. Many of these crews were pre-staged in advance of the storm, and additional crews, some from as far away as Canada, have been moved into harder hit areas of the state. Crews are working quickly and safely to address down power lines and fallen trees and restore power. Hazardous winds are expected to continue throughout the day, particularly down here on the South Shore, on the Cape and Islands. Peak gusts this afternoon are expected between 55 and 65 miles per hour, and those are expected to continue through early this afternoon. Then winds are expected to slowly diminish throughout the day, but gusts are not expected to be below 35 miles an hour until 9 or 10 o'clock this evening. As soon as those winds come down, as soon as we have sustained winds below 35 miles per hour, crews will be able to go up in the bucket trucks and focus on power restoration efforts. But right now, they're able to get out and really work on the tree clearing on the ground, make sure roads are getting cleared, downed limbs are getting cleared, and so that work is already well underway. The timeline is approximately multi-day for full system-wide restoration, and very importantly, utilities remain in close contact with life support customers and critical care facilities, as well as schools. We ask for your patience as these companies proceed with their efforts, which we all appreciate, and thank the crews who are out there on the ground right now. A quick note on our state park system. The Department of Conservation and Recreation is currently assessing damage to our properties, and there are some facility closures, so please monitor that if you are planning to go out to a park, and call ahead to ensure it's open. Everyone should continue to monitor weather reports and take the necessary precautions before venturing out, and as everyone has said, assume a downed wire is a live wire. Please don't go near any downed wires. Thank you, stay safe, and we'll continue to be in touch. Oh. Sorry, I'm turning it over to Joe Nolan from Eversource.
Thank you very much, Secretary, Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, and Chair Nelson. Eversource stands ready. We have over 1,500 resources dedicated to the restoration of over 280,000 customers that are without power. I think that the point around down wires cannot be stressed enough. Right now, there's a lot of leaves, there's a lot of ground cover. We ask our customers that they should expect that every wire that's on the ground is live. We have secured over 2,000 hotel rooms for our resources. We also want to thank the administration for their leadership. They were able to expedite the crews coming in from Canada. We've got crews that have joined us from New Hampshire as well as Connecticut that's going to attack this. We have staging areas set up in Orleans. We have it in Eastham. We have it in Yarmouth, and we have it in Hyannis to go and attack this. I want to thank our 9,300 men and women. Not all of the best linemen in the world work for the New England Patriots. They work for Eversource, and we will get that power back on, and I'm so grateful to our customers for their patience. So thank you very much.
I'm Steve Warner. I'm the president, National Grid New England. Just as Joe said, it can't be said enough, and it was said earlier, if there are any down wires in your neighborhood, please make sure those have been reported so we can address those in a timely manner. In this initial stage of the storm, that is our top priority, is the public safety. Several other safety messages were shared with you, but I'd like to add one additional. If you are a person who has a home generator, portable home generator, please make sure that that generator is outside of your home when it's being turned on. There's too many risks of carbon monoxide poisoning associated with indoor generator use, and they do not belong indoors. So please, if you have a generator, make sure it is away from your home when you power it up. With regard to restoration progress, even though we're still in the storm, we've had over 300,000 customers impacted here in the state of Massachusetts that are National Grid customers. About 30% of those have been restored, and we continue our restoration progress. As said earlier, we've acquired crews from outside of the area and brought them in advance. Additional crews are arriving today, and additional crews are arriving tomorrow, and we will stay at this until every single customer is restored. But I can't emphasize enough, our top priority is keeping all of you informed and keeping all of you safe throughout this emergency. I'll turn things over to Sam.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Sam Phillips from the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency. As the governor said, we've been working very closely with our partners at the State Emergency Operations Center and at our Regional Emergency Operations Center in Tewksbury, and really working very closely with our municipal partners. All disasters are local, and they really are in the thick of things, and so we appreciate the work that they've been doing since very late last night and early this morning. As utility crews begin their work in earnest, we ask for the public's patience and assistance to ensure that we get through this safely. Think about yourselves, your kids, your pets, and as everybody has said here this afternoon, every wire that's down should be treated as a live wire. Please don't take any risks with that. Please stay informed by monitoring local media, local municipality social media channels. Keep your cell phone charged if possible. Visit friends and families' homes to do so. If you need to charge your device. If you have battery-operated radios, that's also a good way to stay informed through the duration of this event. If you're in an impacted community and you don't need to travel, we ask that you stay off the road so that crews can begin and get through their cleanup work as quickly as possible. And as just mentioned, if you are using a generator for power, please do so outside your home. We want to minimize cascading consequences of this disaster and certainly have no instances of carbon monoxide poisoning. Please use flashlights, don't use candles or anything that could create a fire hazard. Our local municipalities, our first responders and law enforcement and firefighting have a big enough job to do already just dealing with road closures and down wires and down trees. And then lastly, again, if you know somebody that needs some help, be a good neighbor, be a good friend, open up your home to them. If you have power, just be a good steward and lend a helping hand. Thank you. Turn it back over to the governor for question and answers.
Is there any advice for those at the gas stations right now? We saw a lot of long lines, a lot of congestion out there. Many people are worried because some stations are out of gas, can't operate right now. What's your advice for them not to panic?
Well, I guess the first thing I'd say is if you don't need to fill it all the way up, fill it halfway up or 3/4 of the way up so that whoever's behind you has an opportunity to fill up as well. I think when we talk about a multi-day event, we're not talking about many multi-days. We're talking about something that's going to take a few days to clean up. As it gets cleaned up, obviously those stations will become available to get replenished with fuel. I have not heard in all the conversations I've had with people any concerns among our folks or from the people we've talked to that issue is going to be a significant one for any significant period of time. Other questions? Let me just close this by saying again, live wires, just assume every wire is a live wire. If you need to go out, be careful and keep your eyes open for these crews, because as both National Grid and Eversource said, and this would certainly apply to the municipal folks if they have issues, as well as to Unitil, there are going to be a ton of crews out there. And they're going to be, in some cases, not all that visible. Hopefully, most of the time, they'll have flashing lights on their trucks. But in some cases, they're going to be working on trees, and they may not be as visible to you as you're coming down the street as they might normally be if these trees had lost their leaves earlier. They didn't. And I think it's really important we make sure we give these guys and gals enough room to actually do the work they need to do to clean the trees out and clean the roads up so that we can then get people up into the bucket trucks and get everybody's power back as quickly as possible. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
You guys are nice to come down.
Thank you so much for giving us a call.
We haven't met yet.
Yeah,
Not
Patrick
much. It's,
Kearney.
What have you heard today?
coming down from Weymouth, so Weymouth doesn't have power. I think the biggest thing is
I was shocked. There's a giant collection of nobody has power.